Do you have any sixes? Nope. Go fish. Man, this is why I wish we did this header bidding style. Header what now? Header bidding. It's this thing in programmatic advertising. Oh, here we go. Nah, it's simple. So you know how here I have to go to each of you one at a time to try to find the six? Well, in advertising, traditionally a publisher would have to go to one ad exchange at a time to try to find an advertiser. Oh, the waterfall, right? Right. So the issue with waterfalling is you might have found an advertiser at the first exchange that's willing to match your price, but if you had gone to the next exchange, you may have found an advertiser that was willing to pay even more for that ad slot. But you were stuck with the first advertiser. Yeah, so usually the first exchange you go to is the one that has the highest paying advertisers. But then you run the risk that eventually that exchange doesn't have the highest paying advertisers, but because you're in the habit of going to them first, you're leaving money on the table without even knowing it. But couldn't you just change up which exchange you go to first? You would think so, but if you're using Google's ad server to help you sell your ad inventory, then you've got to go to Google's ad exchange first. Oh, damn. That seems kind of... Exactly. So ad tech companies and publishers came up with this thing called header bidding, which is basically just going to the ad exchanges and asking them how much the advertisers they have would be willing to pay before letting an ad server know that there's a slot available for sale. So then they can tell the ad server, yeah, I've got this slot to sell, make sure to sell it to this ad exchange. Wait, but I thought they've got to give Google's ad exchange first dibs. They do, but Google's ad exchange also gets last dibs if you're using Google's ad server. Either way, Google's ad exchange still has to match either the price the publisher set for the ad slot or the best price from the other ad exchanges. Okay, so if a publisher knows another ad exchange has an advertiser who's willing to pay, what, $10 for an ad slot, then Google's ad exchange has to come up with an advertiser willing to pay $10.01. Okay, but that still gives Google an advantage. Noticing a trend? Okay, but what does any of this have to do with Go Fish? Well, if we were playing header bidding style, then instead of having to ask one of you at a time if you have sixes, waterfall style, right, instead I'd be able to ask all of you simultaneously who has sixes and pick whoever has the most. But that defeats the whole purpose of the game. You're right. But I needed a way to explain the programmatic waterfall and header bidding for the next video in the series breaking down the Justice Department's ad tech antitrust case against Google. What the f— Alright, now we're getting to the crux of the Justice Department's case against Google. The issue isn't so much that Google built an ad tech monopoly, it's that Google used its ad tech monopoly to prevent fair competition, as outlined in the lawsuit. In the previous videos in this series, we covered how Google established its ad tech monopoly. Now it's time to look at how Google used that monopoly to manipulate the digital ad market. In this video, we'll specifically look at how Google imposed its ad exchange on publishers and put it atop the ad tech food chain. For starters, Google required publishers using its ad server to give its ad exchange first look rights to their ad inventory. That is, these publishers had to put Google's ad exchange at the top of the proverbial programmatic waterfall. Before a publisher could go to any other ad exchange to find an advertiser, Google got its chance to sell the publisher's ad slot. And given that Google had this whole network of advertisers buying its search and YouTube inventory, it had a good chance of closing the sale. Google having publishers using its ad server prioritize its ad exchange is a big deal because, according to the Justice Department's lawsuit, by 2015, Google estimated that it had a 90% share of the publisher ad server market. 90%. In response to Google giving its ad exchange the programmatic pole position, the rest of the ad tech industry came up with a process called header bidding. Through header bidding, a publisher would wait to let Google's ad server know an ad slot was available for sale, because Google's ad server would run and tell Google's ad exchange if it knew, and instead make calls to various other ad exchanges to see how much their advertisers would be willing to pay for the ad slot. Then, when Google's ad server would make the call to Google's ad exchange, the publisher would effectively attach a note saying, here's how much I can get for this impression elsewhere. You better beat it if you want the sale. But Google had a way of heading off header bidding. Thanks to the first look stipulation for publishers using its ad server, Google effectively gave its ad exchange last look rights when other ad exchanges got the jump. So while publishers and other ad tech companies adopted header bidding in hopes of leveling the programmatic playing field, Google held the upper hand in the end. In upcoming videos, we'll look at how the Justice Department alleges Google used its first and last look positions to manipulate bids and make sure its ad exchange won impressions from publishers using its ad server. Thanks for watching.